It is October 8th, 2023, and uh I am in a sweater sort of thing right now because I was really cold after church today. So I kind of bundled up a bit. It's not so bad now actually. Um but yeah, it was cold up here. I'm recording this a little bit later in the afternoon than I usually do. Um cuz I've just been kind of uh I got the TV set up. So I've been watching some football in the couch, and the couch is right next to the windows that actually have light peeking into them in the middle of the day. So I've been hanging out, soaking up the sun. I completely understand why, like, cats and reptiles and things love sunning themselves. I mean, it's a little different for those because they're cold blooded, but you know what I mean. It's nice, and you kind of forget about that throughout the entire spring and summer. So yeah, um, the Packers don't play today; they play tomorrow. So I don't have to watch the games that are going on now, and I don't have to watch the um, the game this evening. But uh, I don't have to watch a Packer game anyway. But you know, they yeah, it's you know what I mean. I have no reason to watch the games that are happening right now. So yeah, figured this was a good time for this. Also thinking about doing a stream for a third day in a row, which it's been a long time since I did that, but I think that I don't see any problems with that. I did a stream last night too. Kind of just doing side questy stuff, finishing up things because it seems like the game is ending, and I don't know if I want to. I don't know what I want to finish up. So I don't know. Maybe I guess I should go around and visit all of um, all the main towns again and say hi to everybody and see if there's anything else that's new. Um, and what else? There's something else. Um, I don't know. It seems like maybe getting all of the armor would be a thing, but maybe not. I don't know. See, that would probably I don't know. I feel like that would kind of be a good thing, a good quest to get to is getting all of the armor. Maybe I don't know. That seems kind of weird. Anyway, I haven't decided yet. So, so the other reason why I'm recording this now instead of later or earlier is because I've put in some work on my cross stitching project, uh, and I want to show you guys. Um, uh, like I said before, I'm not gonna be stopping and showing you guys every color if it's really short. So I actually did three colors this time. I kind of lied when I said I don't know. I didn't make you guys any promises. So okay, here's where it's at now. So the three colors I did were brown, light peach, and pale peach. Um, so the only pale peach part is right there. That's this, and that's it. Um, so it's not with any of the other peaches or anything else. It's just that section right there. So I think I was able to do that all in one thread. So each, so I've mentioned before it's like certain numbers of yards. Uh, I don't think it's actually I no it's not yards. I can tell you it's not yards. I think actually I have mine folded in half. Maybe it is yards. Huh. When I see it, it's not yards because it's folded in half. But those come in six. Each of those has six threads in it. For anybody who actually cares and doesn't already know, a yard comes with with um, six threads in it, and then all of the stitches, all of the cross stitches in here are two threads. So you just put two threads on your needle and do it. Actually, what I do is I take one thread out of the yard and then fold it in half, and then I can just leave my needle there because it stays put. So and you don't have to worry about anything fraying or anything if you just fold your because if you try to do two like whole yards, then things start fraying really fast as you bring it up and down all the holes in there. So I fold it in half, and that way, first of all, it can't fray because there's no loose ends. It's just a loop, and loops don't really fray. Uh, and yeah, you can set it down, and your needle will never fall out, or the thread will never come out of the eye of the needle. Um, there's a couple downsides. Um, it gets a little weird when you get right to the end of your thread, but you don't want to do that in cross stitching projects anyway. And the other 99.9% of the time, it's very, very nice. So I would recommend trying that out if you're into cross stitching. What else was I saying? Oh yeah, so there is light peach in this section, in that section, and then the light peach is what's all the lighter colors around here. So, like I said, that's a little more extensive than the other one was, but it's not very far away from what we had already done, and it wasn't anywhere like up at the top or anything. So, that was basically why I did the peaches next anyway. All of the peaches are really not that far away from things that we had already done with just our first color or two. So, and then the other color that I did was brown, and you can't really see that well. Yeah, it's you can't. It's a problem with the lighting. Well, but actually, to be completely honest, even looking at it and knowing what I had just done, it's very hard to tell the difference between the brown that I just did and the red brown, which, um, like which was the second color that we did. I think, yeah, definitely was. Um, so yeah, even knowing exactly which stitches are which, it's very hard to tell the difference. And that makes me a little more confident that I chose those colors correctly because in my 8-year project or whatever it is, there's red, brown, and brown in those too, even though they use a different numbering system for the thread, and I don't think they're equivalent. The brown and the orange brown, what it is in that one, look almost identical. So the fact that the brown and the red brown in here look almost identical, um, I'm okay with. Uh, but yeah, it's such a slight difference. Um, but then looking at the picture of this completed on the front of the thing, uh, some of these you can pick out the individual threads or the individual stitches, and like some of these colors uh, do not look the same as what they do on the picture on the front. So I don't know. At some point, I'm pretty much I'm like going back and checking. Like I said, you can tell how many yards there are of the thread of each. It lists how many yards there are of each color, and you can use that to kind of say, well, if I'm choosing between this and this, it can't be this because this is the wrong number, basically. It really helps narrow your choices down a lot. Um, so I go back and check some of these, and it's like, well, these two colors that I think should be swapped don't have the same numbers, so they can't be swapped. So, because they're not like even in the same category. So I don't know. At some point, I think that point is pretty much now. I have to say, well, when I had all these colors, laid out next to each other, and I had to choose from each category, to figure out what was the least, what was the most likely scenario. Uh, this is what I chose, and just live with that and not like try to go back and try to fix anything that probably isn't broken. Um, I don't know. Being confident in your decision is uh, harder than it might seem. But I don't know. There is some learning how to trust yourself is weird. Um, one of the one of the things that I had to that click was my chair locking, because I lock it so that when I lean back, uh, I don't go all the way back, because this doesn't look professional. So when I'm recording these and or getting ready to stream, I lock my chair, but it doesn't make a noise until you lean back the first time. So I try to do that so it doesn't make noise, but I forget. And that's what that was. That is very a distraction from what I was saying, which is um, one of the things I was very not confident about for a while has to do with music. And this is back in the days when I was playing in my local youth orchestra, um, which was like a group that you had to audition to get into, and like they required you to be a part of your school's music program first, because they didn't want to try to take you away from anything. It was kind of a big deal that I got in. It's not like you know, it's not like a huge city where the only people who get in are going to be like, you know, maestros. No, what's the word? I can't think of it anymore. Prodigies. It's not something. We had some bad players in there too. It's not like, well, whatever. So I was so yeah, it was kind of weird for me. Um, I listened to a lot of orchestral music at that point, so I kind of knew some of the basics, but I had never been in an orchestra because I was homeschooled, and so I didn't have a school music program. This local youth orchestra was my school music program, basically. Um, and playing in a group is just so much different than playing by yourself and practicing and doing solos, and it's so much different. The social aspect of music is really something else. Um, and that's why musicians are kind of weird social people. Not weird in the sense of like awkward, but weird in the sense of uh, different. Different than engineers, at least. So, anyway, so I have a good ear for pitch, and I don't really mind saying that. Uh, as a percussionist, it doesn't do you a lot of good unless you're playing timpani, which is something that I ended up doing fairly often. Um, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if it when it comes down to it, the hardest part's gonna go to the, you know, I don't know what I'm saying, but um, yeah. So playing playing timpani most of the time is not that bad. For a lot of the orchestral music that you play, you just set up your timpani, you tune them before the piece starts or before the, you don't want to tune it in the space between movements, probably. That's probably a bad idea. Um, Maybe. I don't know. That probably depends on the orchestra. Uh, and you just basically set them there. Sometimes you have to change one to another. If you don't know, timpani are like those big kettle drums that are almost probably in close to 100% of orchestral pieces. Um, and like most large groups, large like wind ensembles and large concert bands, timpani is one of the most popular percussion instruments, and it has been since like the 1700s. Um, but nowadays, timpani were a lot different back then, as were most instruments. Um, but timpani nowadays have you typically have a set of four that are all different sizes, so they can reach different pitches, and you change the pitch by taking your foot, putting it on a pedal, and then um, going going up and down. So going this way makes the pitch higher, going this way makes the pitch lower. And I mean, I don't know why I have both my hands up here, but it's because, well, you have 2 feet, so um, this one over here, this one, that one, and that one. So uh, tuning things with your feet is a very interesting way to have an instrument set up. Like, could you imagine trying to tune an oboe or a bass clarinet? You have to tune that with your feet. Um, First of all, for precise tuning from like wind instruments and stuff, you use uh, your airflow and your lips and stuff to change the pitch very slightly, and you usually have a more permanent way of setting it. Uh, Otherwise, and then with stringed instruments, basically the same thing. Um, but with timpani, there are no two ways to tune it. There's the one way, and that's with your feet. So you have to be precise, because if you are in the middle of a piece and you play it and you hear that you're not on pitch, you're sharp or flat or something, you can't do a precise change very easily, because the way that you change from a B flat to an F is the same way that you change from a C that's a little flat to a C that's a little sharp, or a little, right on. So it's a very precise thing, and it's well, on there's different ways that they can do it. You can have some where it's like locked, and then you like you hit a thing, and that unlocks it, and then you have like fine control. Um, but usually it's just a friction thing where you put enough force and then you go. Uh, anyway, there's really old ones that have like a hand crank. Those ones are You don't use those anymore because you can't do things quickly with those. There's no way. Actually, that if you could have one that has like a foot thing and a hand and an arm thing, that would actually be the two different ways to tune something. That would be the course and the fine tuning. Really, it's not a bad idea. Instead of having one like this, though, maybe you could have like one off to the side that's like that. I don't know. That's not a bad idea. This, can I call up the U.S. Patent Office? See if those exist. Too many are already expensive. That would be way too much, probably. Anyway, so in modern pieces, uh, like I'm specifically thinking of some by like Leonard Bernstein, and a lot of them that I did with the with like a wind ensemble later, but that doesn't have anything to do with the story. Um, a lot of modern pieces have very fast timpani tunings, not like giving you 50 measures to go up a half step, but like you know you have to play 7 notes in this set of 8 measures or something like that. um Maybe not quite that well, I don't know, it's probably pretty accurate. You only have 4 timpani. In order to hit 7 notes, you need to change 3 of those at least. Depending on how they're repeated, you might need to change all of them. um But that's kind of one of the fun things, at least in my mind, about doing this is that you kind of get to go through it, kind of like it's routing out things most efficiently, kind of like why I like cross stitching projects, the whole logistical side of things, um, trying to not just minimize the changes, but to make the best changes that you can. Um, the ones that how can you set this up so that it's the easiest? Sometimes the easiest way involves more changes than the minimal way, but it's really something that comes with experience and what you're comfortable doing, I guess. And that's kind of where I'm trying to get to here in this whole thing. Um, when I started out in the youth symphony, I was very um, I checked the tuning of my timpani like all the time. Like even if I was just like sitting there doing nothing, I would you can kind of like put your ear down and like tap on it and you can hear it. And people can see what you're doing, but it doesn't like affect the sound or anything because it's so quiet. At least I think it is. uh, so yeah, I was like checking my timpani all the time because I find it really annoying when some people with that maybe don't have as good of an ear for pitch, um, they they do a timpani part and they're like way off, like maybe even like a half step off or something, and it's like they're pounding on that and it's like it's the wrong note. Like it's close to the right note, but it is not the right note. So I really dislike that. It bothers me, and also because I put a lot of time and effort into making sure that when I do it, it's right. So it bothers me when people don't or can't. I guess I don't know. So I try to. I would always like check over and over and over again, like making sure that nothing had changed. Which why would it have changed? And making sure that I did it right. Because, well, but why wouldn't I have done it right? And everything like that. Um, so but then I got some of these harder parts to do, and like the specific one I'm thinking about is the timpani part for the Candide Overture by uh, Leonard Bernstein, which is a wonderful piece. I love it. It's whimsical and fantastical. I don't know the story behind it. Maybe I should, but I like Leonard Bernstein anyway. His music is really I really enjoy it. I listened to a lot of his music around that time actually, um, which is also related to why I enjoy the West Side Story that we're doing with the orchestra that I'm in now. I love that one so much because Leonard Bernstein also did West Side Story, so I like his music, and I have gotten slightly obsessed with Leonard Bernstein's music, uh, and so I've listened to a lot of it, and so that's the music that I have, like now on my phone and stuff. So I continue to listen to a lot of it, even though I'm not quite as obsessed, maybe. Um, but yeah, the Candide Overture has uh, that timpani part is okay. Maybe not 100. It's not difficult 100% of the time, but there are some like top 10 hardest things to do on timpani in there. Uh, there's a part where he has the timpani playing the bass line, like along with the cellos and basses. And, cellos and basses, you have infinite notes to play because you can slide your fingers along and you have four strings and stuff. And timpani have four notes. That was one of the hardest things I had to do. That's one of those sections where, like I said, you might have eight measures and seven notes to play. Um, you can't check. It's a fast piece too. You cannot check those notes in that section. You have to tune it and you have to play it, tune it in one measure and play it in the next measure on the new note. That is something that you have to have a lot of confidence to do. That's not something where, I mean, you could do it and just not care. But if you care about, making the group sound good, and see that I don't go and play. I don't. Well, at least I don't think I do. I don't try to. I don't go and play things quiet because, you know, because I'm not gonna do good. At least like I said, there's exceptions. But if somebody wrote something in a piece of music that you're supposed to play something loud, even if it's hard, I'm not gonna just like play it quietly. So, because that's the other thing you could do if you really care about the group's sound, but you don't think you're gonna do a good job, you could just play it super quietly. But that's especially in percussion. That's not the point. Anything you have in a percussion part, especially in orchestra, um, it's written there to be heard. Because if it's there not to be heard, they just wouldn't write it, because that's why you have like 100 measure rests in these orchestral pieces, because they didn't want to hear percussion, so they didn't write it. So it's special when you have something to play that they want it to be heard. And that's why you get a lot of percussionists that play really loudly. But I mean, you shouldn't overtake everybody, but the I wouldn't play that quietly, and it was hard. It was so hard to break my habit of checking every note that I play multiple times. Um, but that was really one of the pieces. There's harder parts later on, like at the end too, where um, you have to go, and maybe you can get um, so there's four notes you have to play, and you're playing like them in back to back. Um, so there's one note that you can have the same one note that you can start off with, and then maybe one of the notes that you can put on another one. But there is one where you have to change that within like half a beat. Um, there's at least one note where you have to change it, up uh, in half a beat, and then change it back before you play it again. And that's another one where it's like you don't even have a measure to tune it. You have half a beat to tune it. And the good thing is that you're doing it over and over again in that section, so you get a lot of practice at it. Um, but yeah, that's you. There you literally can't check that. You're checking it is playing it, and that's something that's really hard to do if you want to play the volume that it's written at, and you want to make sure that the group sounds good, or you want to do your part. Yeah, I guess doing your part is really what it is. Playing quietly isn't doing your part. Playing wrong isn't doing your part. If you want to do your part in the orchestra as a timpani player on that piece, you have to just go for it. Um, and yeah, that's. It also helped that we had a university professor um, come help us out, uh, just in like some of the techniques, and giving us pointers and stuff, which was one of the best things about that group. Was they're called sectionals. Percussion sectionals are usually weird because everybody's resting at different times, and it's hard to figure. It's hard to play together, basically. But he said that I was doing a good job, and I really that was really. He said that it was like that piece is actually difficult, and I was doing a very good job on one of the hardest parts that's commonly played. So um, that was also nice to hear that, um, to help my confidence on that in general. In addition to specifically having the confidence to play notes that I tuned, but that's in that particular instance for that situation of tuning timpani and doing some percussion stuff. That's where you just have to trust yourself that you did it right. Um, and I mean, you can be open to adjusting things, but to some extent, you can't. But either way, you have to trust that you did it right when you did it a second ago or 10 seconds ago, whatever it is. Um, so, yeah. Was this all based on what I started talking about with my cross stitching project, that I have to assume that I just did it right when I sorted the colors and just move on from there? Was that what spawned this whole thing? Was it? I guess. I don't know. Did I have some other point that I was gonna make? I don't think so. I don't have that confidence with my job right now. Through some mix of not having done anything or not feeling like I've done anything and not feeling not knowing about what solution paths I should take, I don't know. There are things that I don't have that confidence about, and one of them is my current job. Uh, but that I think sometimes figuring that out and thinking about that helped me out in college too, to some extent. Um, where on some exams and tests, it's like, well, I could double check all of this stuff, but um, since it looks reasonable now, I'm gonna assume that when I did it, I used my full mental powers to do it right the first time, and then go on from there. Because that's usually true. Usually, when you do an exam and like maybe answer all the questions and then go back and look over stuff if you have a second chance, or if you have extra time going through the problems again, um, if you change something that looks like it might be wrong, you've probably just made it wrong. Usually, you use all of your brain power the first time around, um, and at least that's been my experience, and I think a lot of people work that way too. You used all of your power the first time, um, so when you go back a second pass through, you're kind of tired and not thinking as well anymore. Um, if something looks terribly awfully wrong, like you know that it's wrong, it's like, oh, how did I do that? Then that's when you go back and change it. Um, but yeah, if you think something might be wrong, then that's usually not a good enough reason to go back and change it. Maybe find some way quickly to figure out, well, if this was right, then this would mean this, and if it was wrong, it would mean that. And then maybe finding some quick and easy way to check your answer. I mean, that's what I would do. That's what I usually did. But redoing everything because it looks like it might be wrong, it's a bad idea. Don't do that. Um, yeah, sometimes you just have to assume that you're right. Assume that you did it right the first time. What you really need to do is practice. And then when you're done practicing, then you know that you can do it right. Because just assuming you're going to do something right is usually a bad idea. But practicing something and then assuming you get it right is maybe not as bad an idea. And I've been talking for a long time now, so I think I'm done, and I'm going to decide on whether to stream now or not, which I probably will, because why not? Because it would be fun. Because I know what I'm doing now, and if I take 2 weeks of break, then I'm not going to know what I'm doing. So, okay, goodbye.